Hey guys, Ash here, and this is the Vivo X200 Pro Mini. If you look at recent trends, brands like Apple and Asus have been killing off their small phones, citing a lack of consumer demand. But surprisingly this time, Vivo's gone ahead and launched a flagship Mini. Given I am in China now, I managed to pick one up, and in today's video, let's first get this unboxed and take a look at everything Vivo's packed into this one. The box, it's typical Vivo black packaging with the familiar blue size branding. Maybe it feels a tad small. Now guys, I've picked up the 12-256 variant, which is the base. Let me go ahead and cut through the plastic and peel it off. Opening up the box, the first thing you see here is the Vivo X200 Pro Mini. I picked up the green variant. It feels quite compact, seems to fit nicely in the palm of my hand. Vivo also offers this phone in pink, white and black. Note that it's only the white that has a glossy back. The other three have a matte finish. Now as the Mini boots up, let's set it aside and dig further in. We then have a leaflet, a transparent TPU case, nothing much to say here. It adds to the grip, lets the design shine through, and it is free included in the box. We then have a USB Type-A to Type-C cable with white accents, a SIM ejector tool, and finally a 90-watt Vivo flash charger. Now despite this phone being a Mini, Vivo's managed to pack in a 5700 mAh battery. And the best part is they've managed to do this while still keeping the phone sleek at just 8.15 millimeters of thickness and keeping the weight under 190 grams. Hell, they've even managed to pack in wireless charging support at up to 30 watts. Now, wired using the included 90-watt charger, you can charge this 5700 mAh battery from 0 to 50 in about 18 minutes, and a full charge is going to take you about 40, so it's very fast. Now my first impressions, what I instantly liked about this phone, it's the in-hand feel. It's quite convenient to use single-handed, it's easy to reach the other end of the display. Now talking about single-handed usage, here's where most brands these days, they go for the Apple kind of reachability option. Vivo instead uses a flick gesture to shrink the screen. Now this, it took me a little bit of getting used to, just a thing to keep in mind. Anyways, the frosted matte glass back, while slippery, feels totally immune to fingerprints and smudges. The camera array occupies a substantial portion of this back, and with good reason. We'll get to that in just a minute. Now the metal sides, they have rounded off edges, which makes the in-hand, the holding part, a little more comfortable. And while the top of the phone is empty, don't think Vivo skipped out on the IR blaster. They've included it, but just like Xiaomi, they've moved it to the camera array. Now there's IP68 and 69 certifications for dust and water resistance. Now if I had to mention a con, I'd say the fingerprint scanner, it's located a little too low. But given the phone is this size, you can still hit it quite easily without any major finger gymnastics. Talking about form factor, Vivo does call this a Mini, and I've pointed out multiple times in this video so far that it's pretty compact, but it is not a replacement for the iPhone Mini. In fact, the overall form factor is pretty close to the vanilla iPhone 16 Pro. That said, 6.3-inch displays aren't all that common on Android phones these days, so I am happy that this phone exists. Now talking about the display, this here's a 10-bit 1.5K 80 LTPO AMOLED panel with a 120Hz refresh that can drop all the way down to 1Hz if needed. Now given the size, the pixels are quite densely packed, 460 pixels per inch. Vivo claims a brightness peak of 4500 nits, but that's for HDR. Now in my testing, the Mini output about 1200 nits, which is very good for outdoor use. And under low light, there's 2160Hz PWM dimming for those sensitive to OLED flicker. This excellent display, it's well complemented by loud and clear stereo speakers, so consuming media even on this small screen, it's still quite a good experience. Now the X200 Pro Mini is a flagship, and a very important part of being called a flagship is the performance, the SoC on the inside. Now Vivo, this time again, they've gone with MediaTek's flagship Dimensity 9400, which, to give you some perspective, is just a tad behind Qualcomm's 8 Gen 4 or 8 Elite in terms of CPU performance, while actually edging ahead with GPU, though games are typically better optimized for Qualcomm chips, so this might not necessarily be a big advantage here. Now there's also 12 or 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM paired with 256, 512 gigs or up to a terabyte of fast UFS 4.0 storage. So no doubt, the X200 Pro Mini, it's a powerhouse of a phone when it comes to performance. But owing to the smaller overall footprint, are there any throttling issues? Now that's something I was very interested to check out. And Vivo, they've tried to control the thermals here. The Mini did end up losing almost half its performance when stressed for 20 minutes. It also got a little warm, and that happens typically only while gaming, not with regular use. So basically there seems to be a bit of a performance cost involved if you're going to choose this form factor. Now guys, after I finished my script and by the time I was shooting this video, GSM Arena's review for the X200 Pro, the full size, the regular, the vanilla X200 Pro went live. And if you look at that phone also lost about half its performance on the same test. So this might not necessarily be a compromise. It might be more of a Dimensity 9400 thing. We won't know for sure till we start seeing other phones come out with the same chip. Anyways, moving on. Now from a software perspective, this phone runs on Origin OS 5 built atop Android 15. Of course, when it goes global, it will come with FunTouch OS like all other Vivo phones. Now, given its hardware chops, it's no surprise everything is fast and fluid. Origin OS 5 does have a heavy focus on AI, and there are things like AI wallpaper generation. Now, I'm not gonna go into this too much because again, it's exclusive to China. I did particularly find this comic book style art generator based on images to be pretty interesting, though it is all tuned for China, at least as of now. Now, another big important aspect of this phone are the cameras. The primary here is Sony's Light 818, a 50 megapixel 1x1.28 inch sensor that Vivo claims should give you results close to what you'd see on 1-inch sensors. Now, in my time so far, it seems to do great. Images ended up with a lot of detail, the dynamic range was excellent. Even under mixed or low light situations, this camera impressed. Under low light, I especially like the highlight control. Like see here, once the picture is taken, see how the highlights are not blown out, they're brought back down, they're preserved quite well. I think Vivo's done a good job. Now shooting 2x gets you sensor crop results, so even at 2x there's a lot of detail and the images are very much usable. For 3x we actually get a periscope telephoto in this form factor. Now this is the one sensor that changes between the Pro and the Mini. Here it's a 50 megapixel 1x1.95 inch sensor with a f2.57 lens that's also optically stabilized. Now this lens, it can focus pretty close, letting us shoot beautiful telephoto macro shots like this. The regular 3x shots also turned out nice. The colors are close to what you'd get with the primary. Vivo's also optimized zoom video. They call this stage mode. So when you shoot 10x zoom videos, they should still be usable. Normal video tops out at 4K 60, no 4K 120 like the Vanilla Pro. Probably because the Mini lacks the V3 Plus chip. But then again, 4K 60 is good enough, and you can also shoot 4K 60 with HDR. And this time, the selfie camera also does 4K 60. Footage is very good. This here's a 32 megapixel sensor, the Samsung ISOCELL KD1. It does quite well with stills and portraits. Now switching over to the back again, the ultra-wide is another Samsung sensor, 50 megapixels JN1. It's paired with the f2 ultra-wide lens which has autofocus and lets you shoot regular macro shots. Now with the X200 series, I feel Vivo's done justice to the excellent portraits from last year's X100. Now honestly, the X100 Pro was probably my favorite phone with respect to portraits, and I think the Mini here does edge ahead from that. You get all the Zeiss bokeh options and different focal length choices, very good stuff. Now the Vivo X200 Pro Mini, it starts at 4699 RMB, which converts to about 55,000 rupees Indian or about $660 US. And for that price, I feel this is a very interesting phone. Especially if you're someone who's looking for something smaller than the regular 6.7, 6.8 inch screens that seem to be the norm on pretty much every Android phone these days. So what do you think about the X200 Pro Mini? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Ash out.